This story is so weird that at some point I nearly pushed it out of my mind altogether. My friend reminded me of it last night though, and now I'm creeped out all over again. I was around 15 or 16 at the time this happened, and I was on vacation at Walt Disney World sometime during the summer. My family has the vacation club membership, so we go a few times a year since we live close by anyway. We were staying in the vacation club villas, which is a separate building from the main hotel. I'd brought two of my friends with me this time, Savannah and Victoria. We got bored at around 2 a.m. or so we went down to the gym together. It was open 24 hours. We weren't even gonna work out really, just take some mirror selfies and mess around with the exercise balls. There's a desk for the spa portion of the gym, or maybe a sauna, I don't really remember. But since it was so late, there were no employees around. We decided to mess around a bit behind the desk and found this notebook. I'm not sure why. I was super annoying at the time, but I decided to write my Twitter and Instagram handles down on it, and so did Savannah. Looking back, I'm pretty sure we could get in trouble, since guests obviously aren't supposed to screw around with the desk. I didn't really think too much of it though. We left the gym and the next morning we checked out of the hotel. On the drive back home though, I get a Twitter notification. It was from a diaper fetish account. And the creepy thing is, this account had been active for quite a long time. It had disgusting pictures of grown men in diapers, sure, but it had even more disturbing pictures of children abounding. Savannah began to get notifications as well. We both sat there looking at each other, thinking, what the fuck? The account tweeted to us, saying something like, "I know who you are and what you've done. Your vacation will end abruptly." They began to tweet some more creepy things, telling us to watch our backs. I knew it was clearly because we'd left our names on the notepad. I didn't reply back. I noticed after a while I had a new follower. The person had my name and profile picture as well. This new account started tweeting my address, my phone number, and random pictures of me from on my vacation, all over all of my social medias that they could find. They did the same thing with Savannah's, and at this point we were both shitting bricks. I began to get texts from random numbers, assuming they must have been using a texting app. They were saying they were watching us and knew much more than we ever thought they could. They began to text me about my boyfriend at the time and even asked me some really fucked up questions about my personal life. I told them to fuck off and blocked them. I did not get any more texts from them at least, but random accounts continued to pop up and tweet about me. Random details about my life I had no idea how they were able to find. I blocked all of those that I could too, but eventually there were so many, I had to put all of my accounts on private. I never got any more direct messages, but those Twitter accounts tweeting about me still seem to be up to this very day. This happened a few nights ago. I'm a 25-year-old female, 115 pounds. I was out with my thoroughbred Shane, doing some fitness work on the cross-country course. If you don't know what that is, imagine a huge area full of fields, ditches, woods, etc., with jumps placed strategically throughout, designed to test horse and rider stamina. We were getting ready to head in from an evening of long, hard work. It wasn't quite dark yet, but it was slowly getting there, prompting me to head in for the day. As we were walking around the area we had been working in, my horse started refusing to go near a particular patch of woods. We had gone by it several times that evening, so I urged him forward to investigate. That was when I began to hear what I believed to be a human voice. I realized somebody had been watching us the entire time. This property was on 700 acres, and this section was nowhere near a road. Clearly, someone had intentionally made their way very close to where a rider could be. I didn't want to startle my horse, so I calmly turned him around and began to fast walk around that patch of woods, giving it a very wide berth. I had intentions of heading straight the fuck back to the main barn. As I got to the middle of the field though, Shane halted. By then, it was almost dark, and I realized something. As I looked out into the distance, I could see there were people hidden in the woods all across the field in front of me too, which is where my safest exit was located. Now I had somebody hiding in the woods 50 yards or so behind me, and what sounded like many people in the woods 50 yards or so in front of me. I briefly considered any other exit routes, but as I mentioned before, this was very far off the road. My immediate thought process was that they certainly hadn't just walked over here. Yeah, Shane and I could beat them to the gate, but if they had a vehicle of some sort, they would have caught up easily as I was stopping to open it. We stood there for maybe 30 seconds before me and my horse simultaneously came to the conclusion that if we went now, we could at least try to beat them. We bolted across the field, slowed up slightly to cross a ditch in the woods, one they were trying to surprise block me at, and flew to the gate just beyond it. I jumped off as quickly as possible, unlatched it, and didn't even stop to mount the horse. I just grabbed his reins and together we bolted off. Within 20 yards or so, we could hear shouting and hollering in the distance. I started to scream as loud as I could for anyone to hear. "There are people out there at the entrance! Come here!" As soon as I started making a fuss, a four-wheeler started up from just behind the gate and hauled ass away. A police report was made. The next day, there was evidence found of 2 four-wheelers, so that makes sense since I was seeing people basically surrounding me. We aren't going to stop riding out there, but the barn owners are taking some precautions. We certainly won't be out there alone, or at night anymore for a while. Maybe it was just some teenagers looking to scare a rider, but either way, it was certainly not cool. Also, the fact they tried to set up a surprise roadblock on my only exit route. I can't imagine the intentions were pure, certainly. Thank God for my hypersensitive horse. Without him forcing me to pay attention, I may have never noticed those people, especially the ones hiding in the woods in front of me trying to be quiet. Shane was certainly the best boy that day. I recently ran into an old coworker from our time we worked at a sandwich shop in the truck stop. We chatted for a while before he had to leave, but I started thinking about my stint at that place, specifically the creepy sandwich guy. In college, I worked some overnights at that truck stop. It was a pretty safe place in a smaller town, and there had only been 3 incidents in the 4 years the place had been open before I got hired. 1, a trucker got robbed. 1, a group of ladies arrested for servicing the truckers, and 1 overdose. I was never really worried, even though my coworker seemed a little bit concerned that I was a young girl working overnights. Especially at a truck stop in particular, where there was only 1 other employee in the entire place. Usually it was really slow though. Most of the time I'd simply get 3 or 4 truckers coming in within the first hour. A couple of people would come in with the munchies and order 3 dozen cookies at one time, but usually it was around 1 person an hour if that. And that meant most of the time I'd spend about 3 hours cleaning ovens, finishing dishes, deep cleaning the lobby, that sort of miscellaneous thing. I'd spend whatever leftover time in between the customers coming doing my homework. The overnight boss on the other side, the gas station side, was pretty cool as long as everything was cleaned and temped regularly. A few weeks before I inevitably left this place behind, a guy came in about 20 minutes before my shift was set to end. It was around 5 a.m. at this point. My coworker had arrived earlier, so we could fill out some paperwork he had to get done soon. He was sitting in the back office already because of this. I started to make this particular customer sandwich, making a bit of small chit-chat like usual. At first, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. He told me he was driving from New York to Wisconsin and asked me a bit about how my night had been. Nothing crazy so far. I wrapped up his sub, rang it up for him, and even threw in a small discount for him since he seemed nice. I was just happy I was getting ready to go home for a few hours of sleep before I had to head off to a long day of college classes. When I went to take his change is when things went wrong. He dropped the coins in my hand, but suddenly he grabbed my wrist tight. The next thing I knew, I was flipping over the side of the counter onto the floor. He had yanked me across and still had a firm grip on my wrist. He began to wrap his hands around my throat. Thank God my coworker was there. The manager on the other side had slipped into the bathroom, so to this guy's knowledge, I was the only person there at the moment. My coworker, while filling out his papers, happened to look up at the cameras and see the man attacking me. He was bolting out of the back just seconds after I hit the ground, and before I knew what was going on, he had chased the man outside. He didn't pursue him far, afraid that someone else might be nearby who would come after me as well. He ran back inside, locked the door to our side of the store, and shouted for the manager to call the police. The cops came. They searched the area and watched the security photos, but nothing ever came from it. The guy disappeared completely, and I never heard anything about him. I put in my 2 weeks' notice the following day, after my nerves had calmed down a bit. I was switched around, so I worked during the day around my classes for my last few days. They made it a policy as well that 2 people were to be working both sides of the truck stop on overnights from that point on. I still live about half an hour from there, and honestly, I haven't gone back since that last day. That memory is still fresh in my mind, even 8 years later. So this happened about a year ago, and it's still pretty freaky. For context, my friend and I are both 22 and female. My friend Anna and I were bored one weekend and decided to go to a popular beach to take some pictures and just mess around together. We took pictures and had a pretty lovely day overall. On the way back though, we were starving, so we decided to stop at a McDonald's in the beach town. This town is really famous and nice. Lots of celebrities live there, and it's quite scenic. There's also a super famous restaurant right off the highway on the beach that's known for rich people going. The McDonald's was directly across the street from that restaurant. Since so many famous people went to this restaurant and it was on a pretty busy road already, most of them had drivers that took them there, usually in big black Escalades. The drivers would hang out in the parking lot of that McDonald's, while their bosses ate across the street. Anna and I didn't really know this at the time. We just wanted a McFlurry. We go to the McDonald's, and right when we get out of the car, she starts acting really weird. She triple checks the car doors are locked and grabs her fancy camera to bring inside with her. When I ask her what's up, she said there's a group of drivers standing in front of the McDonald's smoking and staring at us, and it was making her feel weird. I'm a pretty chill and trusting person, so I didn't really think that much of it. It's a busy place and a super nice town after all. Not particularly worried. We go in and there are a few other people in there about our age. We grab our food and sit at the table to eat. One of the drivers comes in and sits a few booths down with his back to the wall, right where he can see us. My back was to him, but Anna was getting really creeped out and wanted to leave. He didn't eat or order anything. He just sat there staring at us. Still though, like I said, this was a really crowded McDonald's in one of the nicest towns in Southern California, so I was feeling pretty safe. Living in South Central, you get used to the occasional creep. Still, Anna was freaked out, so I agreed to go. I had to run to the bathroom first though. It was one of those McDonald's where the counter and main dining room were one big room. Then there was a sort of hallway off to the side of the counter with more seating, and a bathroom at the very end way in the back. There was also a door going outside right next to the bathrooms. The bathroom had only 2 stalls inside. I walked into the first one, not really paying attention to whether or not anyone else was in there. So I'm in there doing my thing, when I hear the door open and I hear Anna call my name. At this point, I was very confused, since she was supposed to be watching our things. "Yeah? What's up?" She calls out to me. "Are you okay in there?" "Yeah, I'm just using the bathroom," I reply. She stood there in the doorway. After a second, I heard her leave, and I thought that was very weird. I walk out of the bathroom, only to see her waiting by the door with all of our stuff in her hands. I asked her what was going on and why she'd come into the bathroom. She looked at me extremely panicked and said we needed to leave right now. I was really confused at this point. We rushed out to the car and she started to explain what had happened. Turns out when I'd walked into the bathroom, that driver had followed me inside. I didn't remember hearing him come in. I just assumed someone had either been in the stall next to me already and was leaving, or had just come in to check their makeup or something. Honestly, I wasn't paying that much attention. He didn't close the stall door when he came in, so I wasn't aware he was still in the stall next to me. She had been on her phone, so she hadn't seen him follow me either. A young guy eating had noticed it and gone up to my friend asking if we knew the man. Frantic, she told him we did not and ran to check on me. He was hiding in the stall next to mine with the stall door wide open, trying to peek underneath and not making a single sound. She came in and didn't see him at first, so she called my name to make sure I was okay. When the man realized someone else was now in there, he rushed out of the stall past her and disappeared. She was in shock and didn't know what to do other than grab our things and prepare to run. When we went to her car, the man was sitting in his big black car with tinted windows, parked right next to us, staring at our car. We sped off. When I got the full story, we called the McDonald's to let them know what happened. They didn't really care, of course. Then we called the non-emergency sheriff line to report it as well, which happened to be closed. Thank you, Malibu, for nothing. Eventually, my mom went full mama bear and threatened to blast it all over social media that they didn't take my report seriously. And we got a hold of someone at corporate from there on. They checked their cameras and saw the guy follow me in as well. A police report was made, so at least hopefully this thing never happens to anyone else again. I'm a 21-year-old senior in college, living with 3 other girls in an old one-story house. We're located about a 15-minute walk from the main campus, and the majority of our neighbors are also college students. That being said, this town is notorious for being a little unsavory. Millie is home to one of the first insane asylums built in America. After the majority of it being closed down and abandoned for years, the building was finally shut down about a month ago, and the remaining patients were released. Now, I can't say for sure this is directly correlated with my creepy experience, but I'm not the only one who's had interesting encounters with strangers since this release in this town. 2 nights ago, after getting off work around 11:30, I came home to my roommates getting ready to go for a night out. I realize how stupid now it was, but we often had an open door policy, free for anyone to come over and visit as they pleased. We would lock the door at night, of course, but the one time we forgot really came to bite us, and specifically me, in the ass. Around midnight, I was hopping in the shower as my roommates were heading out the door. We said our goodbyes, and I told them I would meet up with them later that night. I had just stepped out of the shower when I heard what sounded like the front door slamming shut. I automatically assumed one of the girls had forgotten something, so I called out their names, only to hear no response. I began to hear footsteps coming down the hallway towards me. I called out again, no response. Fear and dread came over me. I grabbed my clothes and ran back to the bathroom. I threw them on, leaned my ear to the door, and waited in silence to hear if someone was in the house. I heard nothing. I decided it must have been one of my roommates grabbing something and leaving again. I headed into the living room to grab my phone, only to see 6 missed calls and the phone still ringing. My roommate Carrie was frantic on the other end. I answered and could immediately hear the panic in her voice. "Are you in the house?" "Yeah, why?" "You need to get out now." Sam drove by and said he saw a man walking through the front door. He called the police, but you need to leave right now. I damn near shit my pants. Nothing was going through my head besides adrenaline and fear. I couldn't be sure what the man's intentions were, of course, but I wasn't going to wait around and find out. While remaining on the phone with my roommate, I bolted out the front door and hid behind my car. I watched the house from afar. waiting anxiously to see any movement. My thought process was not at its finest at this point, and I realized I could have made some smarter decisions maybe. As my friends approached in a truck, I sprinted out from behind my car and jumped into the bed of their truck. As I did that, a dark figure scurried off into the woods, running in the opposite direction. I could only assume he had been quietly inching closer to my hiding spot as I was waiting for them to arrive. I screamed bloody murder, and we floored it out of there. I refused to go back into the house until the police arrived and triple-checked it. There were no signs of anything being touched or stolen, which makes me really wonder what the guy's intentions were. I can guarantee you, though, that I've locked my door every single night since.